President Donald Trump of the United States, U.S. has announced plans to meet one-on-one with the President of China, Xi Jinping at Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC meeting coming this November in South Korea, and according to President Trump, he had a phone call with President Xi to also pay a state visit to China early next year to discuss and find a possible solution to end Russia-Ukraine war, and the U.S. issue with the Chinese-owned social networking company, TikTok, that may face complete ban in the United States if agreement is not reached on December 16, 2025. That aside, the United States government is currently being considered as a pseudo-practitioner of free trade and free speech, and freedom of association. Some observers accused U.S. government of monopoly in the technology industry, that it wants to remain superior in the social networking business. Hence the U.S. government is demanding to own and control TikTok, trying to use all manners of manipulative and deceptive ways to force ByteDance to sell TikTok to Oracle and Silver Lake, among others, because of China government alleged control of TikTok algorithm and also allegedly having access to the data of US users. Interesting as it may be, in the aspect of trying to apparently abuse freedom of association, United States government under President Donald Trump has revoked and denied visa to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and 80 other Palestinian authorities in order for them probably not being able to attend the United Nations General Assembly meeting to speak out their minds against Israel war in Gaza and other Palestinian territory. But other world leaders on Friday, in a vote of 145 against 5, permitted the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, to address the World Assembly via video call next week. China, as one of the biggest economies in the world, has been on loggerhead with its major trade rival, the United States, since 2018 during the first tenure of President Donald Trump, and its loggerhead with US has probably made China to maintain a strategic, pro-Russian position on the war in Ukraine, publicly claiming neutrality while allegedly providing essential economic and diplomatic support to Moscow. Reports indicated that Chinese officials privately admit that a Russian defeat would not serve Beijing's interests, which center on its geopolitical rivalry with the United States. Also, China's state-controlled media, Xinhua News Agency, People's Daily, China Central Television, which include China Global Television, China National Radio CNR and China Radio International CRI, some of them always using the prominent social networking platform in China, the Weibo social media, are frequently and apparently always amplifying Russian talking points, such as blaming and accusing the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, of expansionist agenda and the US for allegedly creating the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. On TikTok, as of September 2025, TikTok continues to operate in the US while its owner, ByteDance, negotiates a deal with American buyers to avoid a ban. The social networking app, which has since become one of the most used social media platforms in the world due to its favorable algorithm that challenged older existing social media platforms for low distribution of users' contents, was temporarily inaccessible in January 2025 following a Supreme Court ruling, but was restored after President Donald Trump delayed the ban. A key deadline is set for December 16, 2025, for a sale to be finalized. According to a close watcher, TikTok's US operations be severed from Chinese ownership. The per curiam opinion positioned the case as one of new technologies with transformative capabilities. In truth, the case, and the law it was ruling on, represents more than that. Regardless of how the implementation unfolds, the legal ban on Chinese ownership of social media apps operating in the United States is an inflection point in the US-China tech rivalry, with implications that extend beyond national security, data privacy, and the First Amendment. It signals a broader US strategy to counter China's technological influence across industries like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, AI, electric vehicles, and 5G. We learned that a framework deal has been reached that would give American investors control of 80% of TikTok, with Chinese firms retaining 20% ownership. Proposed buyers include Oracle, which already hosts TikTok's US data, and private equity firms like Silver Lake. It would be recalled that in April 2024, the US Congress passed a bipartisan law, signed by then-President Joe Biden, that requires Chinese parent company ByteDance to divest TikTok's US operations or face a nationwide ban. The law was prompted by national security concerns over potential Chinese government access to American users' data and its ability to influence the platform's algorithm. Wikipedia, in the summary of the China-US trade war, indicated that an economic conflict between China and the United States has been ongoing since January 2018, when US President Donald Trump began imposing tariffs and other trade barriers on China with the aim of forcing it to make changes to what the US has said are long-standing unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft. The first Trump administration stated that these practices may contribute to the US-China trade deficit, and that the Chinese government requires the transfer of American technology to China. In response to the trade measures, CCP General Secretary Xi Jinping's administration accused the Trump administration of engaging in nationalist protectionism and took retaliatory action. Following the trade war's escalation through 2019, the two sides reached a tense Phase 1 agreement in January 2020. However, a temporary collapse in goods trade around the globe during the COVID-19 pandemic, together with a short recession, diminished the chance of meeting the target. China failed to buy the $200 billion worth of additional imports specified as part of it. By the end of Trump's first presidency, the trade war was widely characterized by American media outlets as a failure for the United States. The Biden administration kept the tariffs in place and added additional levies on Chinese goods such as electric vehicles and solar panels. In 2024, the Trump presidential campaign proposed a 60% tariff on Chinese goods. 2025 marked a significant escalation of the conflict under the second Trump administration. A series of increasing tariffs led to the US imposing a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, and China imposing a 125% tariff on American goods in response. These measures are forecast to cause a 0.2% loss of global merchandise trade. Despite this, both countries have excluded certain items from their tariff lists and continue to try and find a resolution to the trade war. In a statement through his Truth social media network on Friday, President Trump said in quotes that, "I just completed a very productive call with President Xi of China. We made progress on many very important issues including trade, fentanyl, the need to bring the war between Russia and Ukraine to an end, and the approval of the TikTok deal. I also agreed with President Xi that we would meet at the APEC summit in South Korea, that I would go to China in the early part of next year, and that President Xi would, likewise, come to the United States at an appropriate time. The call was a very good one. We will be speaking again by phone. Appreciate the TikTok approval, and both look forward to meeting at APEC." On US visa denial to Palestine President Mahmoud Abbas, it would be recalled that Mahmoud Abbas became the president of Palestine in 2005, and barely 2 years into his administration, the Hamas started governing the Gaza Strip after the Hamas took over the Palestinian Gaza Strip territory from the rival Fatah-ruled Palestinian Authority, PA, on the 14th of June 2007, until the current Israel war in Gaza that started since October 2023, during which Hamas appeared to have lost control of most of the territory. The administration of United States President Donald Trump announced in August 2025 it was denying and revoking visas for members of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, and the Palestinian Authority, PA, before the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, in September. The announcement was made in a statement released by the U.S. Department of State. According to the statement, the Trump administration has been clear. It is in our national security interests to hold the PLO and PA accountable for not complying with their commitments, and for undermining the prospects for peace. The Palestinian government responded, and the Abbas's office called the visa decision astonishing, and a violation of the 1947 UN Headquarters Agreement, which requires the US to allow access for foreign diplomats. Reuters International News Agency on Friday reported that the United Nations General Assembly voted on Friday to allow Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to address the annual gathering of world leaders next week via video after the United States said it would not give him a visa to travel to New York. The resolution received 145 votes in favor and 5 votes against, while 6 countries abstained. It also allows Abbas and any other high-level Palestinian officials to take part in UN meetings or conferences via video over the next year if they are prevented from traveling to the United States. The US said last month that Abbas and about 80 other Palestinians would be affected by its decision to deny and revoke visas from members of the umbrella Palestine Liberation Organization and the West Bank-based Palestinian Authority. U.S. opposition to this resolution should come as no surprise, U.S. diplomat Jonathan Schreier said before the vote. The Trump administration has been clear: we must hold the PLO and Palestinian Authority accountable for not complying with their commitments under the Oslo Accords, some of them very basic, and for undermining the prospects for peace. Under a 1947 UN headquarters agreement, the U.S. is generally required to allow access for foreign diplomats to the UN in New York. However, Washington has said it can deny visas for security, extremism and foreign policy reasons. Abbas will also be allowed to appear via video at a summit, opens new tab at the United Nations on Monday, convened by France and Saudi Arabia, that seeks to rally support for a two-state solution. Several countries are expected to formally recognize a Palestinian state at the meeting. The 193-member General Assembly agreed on Friday, by consensus, without a vote, that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the kingdom's de facto ruler, could appear via video at Monday's meeting.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
It may be true that there are certain things people do to others, they may not take the same from anyone. This assertion appeared to have come into play in the current administration of Nigeria President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who in the era of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan apparently used spin logic to always make false statements, incite the public against the government, destroy the reputation and personality of the then President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. As you may know, spin logic in communication is a public relations campaign strategy that uses deliberate biased or misleading interpretations of events and information to influence public perception. In one of the viral videos between 2012 and 2014 in the history of politics in Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was then a chieftain of the defunct Action Congress of Nigeria, ACN, and later All Progressives Congress, APC, allegedly told a gathering of thousands of people that the then President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan said Nigeria citizens should face death or starve to death, directly or indirectly saying that the then President Jonathan did not care about the well-being of his people. Till date, Tinubu has not shown any evidence to back up his claim that the people are hungry. President Jonathan said they should face death, and in some occasions, Tinubu called on the police not to attack protesters. Specifically, on November 29, 2013, Tinubu tweeted via Twitter, now X social media platform, that police do not attack protesters, your children are involved, your lives are involved, your children's future lie here, and urged millions of Nigerians to protest peacefully against the Jonathan-led government. And in one of the protests, Occupy Niger, allegedly sponsored by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, according to Reno Omokri, who was then a media spokesperson to Jonathan, the then President Jonathan's photo was placed on a coffin as a dead man, and the coffin was labeled RIP, meaning rest in peace. Also, in February 2011, as reported by Nigeria media, Tinubu described the then President Goodluck Jonathan as a drunkard sinking fisherman, a word that appears to falsely describe the then President Jonathan as a man that always take too much of alcohol to the extent of losing control of his behavior. But, under the same Tinubu, who is now the President of Nigeria, the State Security Service, SSS, also known as the Department of State Service, DSS, has filed a court case against Facebook and X social media companies over a post published separately on August 25 and 26, 2025 by a well-known human rights activist and anti-government critic, Omoyele Sowore, and his online media, Sowore reporters, and in the 5-count charges, the DSS accused Omoyele Sowore of making defamatory or false statements against the person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for describing the president as a criminal after the president allegedly said there is no more corruption in Nigeria. In the legal battle, Omoyele Sowore has also gone to court to stop Facebook, X social media from deleting his posts and sued the DSS for unconstitutional media censorship. The DSS in the suit marked FHC ABJ CR 484 2025 also joined Meta, the parent company of Facebook and X Corporation, as defendants at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The criminal charges filed and dated September 16 was filed by Mohammed Abubakar, Director of Public Prosecutions, Federal Ministry of Justice, after the DSS wrote to Facebook, X and Sowore to delete the post and deactivate Sowore account, but the parties appeared to have refused to honor the DSS requests. In the 5-count charge, Sowore, the publisher of Sowore reporters, was alleged to have made a false claim against the person of the president by referring to him as a criminal. Sowore, the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, in 2019 and 2023, in the charge is accused of contravening the provisions of the Cybercrimes, Prohibition, Prevention, etc. Amendment Act, 2024. Count 1 of the charge alleged that Sowore, on or about August 25, did use his official X handle page, @YeleSowore, to send out a message, tweet. The message is said to be, "This criminal at official PBAT actually went to Brazil to state that there is no more corruption under his regime in Nigeria. What audacity to lie shamelessly." The message, which he knew to be false, was posted for the purpose of causing a breakdown of law and order in the country, especially among individuals who hold divergent views on the personality of the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. The offense is said to be contrary to Section 24(1)(b) of the Cybercrimes, Prohibition, Prevention, etc. Amendment Act, 2024, among other counts. Meanwhile, Omoyele Sowore also filed a lawsuit against the DSS and owners of Meta and X Corporation not to delete his posts, saying, "The issue is about principles, not personality." Sowore originating summon reads, "On behalf of our client, Omoyele Sowore, we have filed 2 fundamental rights actions at the Federal High Court, Abuja, against the State Security Service, SSS, Meta, owners of Facebook, and X Corporation, formerly Twitter. These suits were filed to challenge the unconstitutional censorship initiated by the DSS, SSS against Sowore's accounts maintained with Meta and X. The lawsuit states categorically that this is about the survival of free speech in Nigeria. If state agencies can dictate to global platforms who may speak and what may be said, then no Nigerian is safe. Their voices will be silenced at the whim of those in power. Censorship of political criticism is alien to democracy. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in Section 39, guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of expression, without interference. No security agency, no matter how powerful, can suspend or delete those rights. Meta and X must also understand this. When they bow to unlawful censorship demands, they become complicit in the suppression of liberty. They cannot hide behind neutrality while authoritarianism is exported onto their platforms. Our prayers before the court are simple, that the SSS has no power in law to censor Nigerians on social media, that Meta and X must not lend their platforms as tools of repression, and that our clients' rights and by extension, the rights of all Nigerians, be fully protected against unlawful censorship. We call on all lovers of freedom, journalists, human rights defenders, and the Nigerian people to stand firm. Today it is Sowore, Tomorrow it may be you. This struggle is not about personalities. It is about principle, and we shall resist every attempt to turn Nigeria into a digital dictatorship. Signed, Toke Temokanov, Toke Temokan Chambers, Lagos, Esquire on the 16th of September 2025. We had reported that as people of Nepal in South Asia country took to the streets in an unprecedented manner to protest an end to corruption and bad leadership in the country during the week after a short-lived ban on social media by the Nepalese government, Nigeria's secret police known as Department of State Security Service, DSS appeared to have doubled efforts apparently to avert the unpleasant Nepal situation in the West Africa country, a situation where some politicians in the South Asia country tasted the bitter side of their citizens like never before. The DSS has appeared to be on the neck of ex-social media management to ensure the deletion of a post tweeted by the founder of Sowore Reporters News Media and a well-known anti-government critic, Omiyele Sowore, that allegedly described the Nigeria president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as a criminal, a statement Sowore made in reaction to the words of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu over corruption in Nigeria while the president was on official visit in Brazil. The DSS said Sowore misrepresented the president's statement, and as such, the supporters of the president are not happy over it. Hence, the security service demanded a retracted publication from Omiyele Sowore, but, in a swift reaction, Omiyele declined and accused the DSS of always acting illegally.
Hunger is increasing, they say so what?
Most of you don't know.
Unemployment is a cause, they say yes, we know.
Waste in Lagos.
Why are the people hungry? Is that let them face death?
But again, I can't say it enough.
That is what is in Abuja
This is with the kind of leaders
of today.
front runners in all this election.
The current way of governance
Town hall meeting people.
make nation do the
Can be
impossible.
used to generate electricity.
What it does, it makes poverty and the erosion of just society inevitable.
In Lagos.
We have gathered at this hour, in this place, to put an end to the national corruption and corruption. We have assembled here today to bring a new day and a new Nigeria to our people.
Can be used to generate electricity.
Today, the Nigerian people
Do you know that corn
are
generates
decent
electricity
and
waste
hardworking
in Lagos?
people.
Osazuwakan Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.
As people of Nepal in South Asia country took to the streets in an unprecedented manner to protest an end to corruption and bad leadership in the country during the week after a short-lived ban on social media by the Nepalese government, Nigeria's secret police known as Department of State Security Services, DSS appeared to have doubled efforts apparently to avert the unpleasant Nepal situation in the West Africa country, a situation where some politicians in the South Asia country tasted the bitter side of their citizens like never before. The DSS has appeared to be on the neck of ex-social media management to ensure the deletion of a post tweeted by the founder of Sowore Reporters News Media and a well-known anti-government critic, Omiyele Sowore, that allegedly described the Nigeria president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as a criminal, a statement Sowore made in reaction to the words of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu over corruption in Nigeria while the president was on official visit in Brazil. The DSS said Sowore misrepresented the president's statement, and as such, the supporters of the president are not happy over it. Hence, the security service demanded a retracted publication from Omiyele Sowore, but, in a swift reaction, Omiyele declined and accused the DSS of always acting illegally. In a letter written during the week and addressed to the Director General of the Department of State Services, Omiyele said, "I acknowledge receipt of your letter, which you stealthily dumped with a security guard at the office of my attorneys in Abuja, addressed to Abubakar Marshall. I find your horrendous attempt at holding an unwarranted brief for the president not only insidious but fundamentally defective, flawed in principle, and absolutely unlawful. The State Security Service was not created as a security institution. The SSS, now self-styled as the DSS, began as the Department, Special Branch, an office established in 1948 and initially located in the Office of the Inspector General of Police. It was later renamed the National Security Organization, NSO, but on June 5, 1986, the federal military government issued Decree No. 19, dissolving the NSO and unbundling it into three entities: the SSS for Domestic Intelligence, the NIA for External Intelligence and Counterintelligence, and the DIA for Military-Related Intelligence. While the NIA and DIA largely kept faith with their mandates, the SSS under successive Director Generals has consistently acted bullishly, illegally, and unlawfully, serving as a ready tool of oppression for dictatorial regimes bent on breaking rules and repressing the rights of the Nigerian people. Thus, it is no surprise that you have once again resumed repressive hostility against me. In 1993, while I was Student Union President at the University of Lagos, policemen abducted me from the university gate during a peaceful pro-democracy protest. I was taken to your Lagos office after being driven around with my head tucked under a seat. From Awolowo Way in Ikoyi, I was detained unlawfully for weeks at the notorious Inter-Center near Ikoyi Cemetery. It took several days of lecture boycotts to force your hand to release me without charges. Again, in January and June 1996, during and after my National Youth Service Corps in Yola, Adamawa State, your men detained me and later transferred me to the Nigerian Air Force Base, where I was held in hand and leg chains for over a week before release, again without charges. My NYSC discharge certificate has been denied to me to this day because of your unlawful detention. In August 2019, DSS agents invaded my hotel room, abducted me, and detained me for months over trumped-up allegations of treasonable felony, money laundering, and cybercrime. It was your first attempt to falsely accuse me of insulting a sitting president. That failed, as did every other false accusation advanced against me by the government through the SSS and police. During that period, you flouted several court judgments. Most disgracefully, your men invaded a federal high court presided by Justice Ijeoma Ojukwu to abduct me even after bail conditions were met. To this day, you continue to refuse to obey two court judgments ordering the return of my confiscated properties, including several mobile phones and payment of damages. You and your ilk have dragged me through unscrupulous abuse and gross violations of rights for decades without remorse. In 2021, during the inglorious Buhari years, your agency propped up a sham group, the Incorporated Trustees of Global Integrity Crusade Network, to sue Sahara reporters and me on behalf of the criminally minded Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, San. They prayed the court to compel me and others to pay Malami 2 billion nairas for alleged trauma and emotional stress caused by Sahara reporters' publications in July 2020. In his judgment, Justice Obiora Egwuatu awarded 100,000 nairas against the litigants, affirming the argument of our attorney, Marshal Abubakar, that they had no right to sue on Malami's behalf, just as you have no right to act as proxy for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Defamation, the judge reminded, is a personal tort. The AGF should have gone to court himself if he felt defamed. It is elementary that only the person defamed can sue. Therefore, your attempt to demand a retraction is an incompetent and unlawful attempt to hold the President's brief. Section 22 of the 1999 Constitution requires the press to uphold the government's responsibility and accountability to the people. Section 39 guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of expression, to hold opinions, and to receive and impart information without interference. Article 9 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights provides the same. Even in the UK, sedition and libel laws have been repealed as archaic relics of a bygone era. The UN Human Rights Committee in General Comment No. 34 has declared a free, uncensored media essential to democracy. Courts across Africa, including Zimbabwe's Supreme Court and the African Court in Issa Konate vs. Burkina Faso, have ruled that criminal defamation is unjustifiable in a democracy. Nigeria's own Court of Appeal, in Arthur Nwankwo vs. State, 1985, struck down sedition laws when Nwankwo was convicted for criticizing Governor Jim Nwobodo. The court held that sedition was unconstitutional and inimical to free speech. Justice Adekeye, in IGP versus ANPP, asked how long Nigerians must suffer under colonial-era public order ordinances designed to gag dissent. Criticism is indispensable in a democracy. Freedom of speech includes the right to say what those in power find uncomfortable. Justice Sowore reminded us that citizens must defend their hard-won freedom of expression, and that those in public office must not be intolerant of criticism. Where boundaries are crossed, the remedy is civil libel, not unlawful repression. The DSS's desire to please the powers that be has always destroyed institutions while building strong men. But where are those strong men today, after your service broke laws and trampled rights to protect them? Rather than vilification, we should be commended for living up to our constitutional responsibility to hold leaders accountable. I am glad you made reference to my constant desire to seek change, the very drive that led me to run for the position of President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, even though my commitments and convictions predate partisan political endeavors. It is from that same line of conviction that I have adopted an uncompromising stance, ensuring that this country does not continue down the path of perdition. You have no business telling me how to criticize the president. But, knowing the nature of your service, it is clear you have not learned your lessons. Let me state it clearly once again. The determination of the Nigerian people to reclaim their country from thieves in power is unwavering. And it shall be achieved. Freedom cometh by struggle, eluta continua, victoria asserta. Yours in unwavering service to Nigeria, Omiyele Sowore, former presidential candidate, African Action Congress, AAC, stated.
Osazuwa Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.